Hotel maid staff, what's the nastiest room you've had to clean, and why? New line. I was a line cook at a hotel back in the day, and I remember this poor maid came out of the service elevator screaming bloody murder. She was from Haiti and was praying and crying at the same time. Everyone is asking what is wrong, but she was hysterical. We later found out she went in to turn down a room and found the guest in the tub with his wrists opened. Apparently there was blood everywhere, and lots of it. Poor woman. She quit that day. New line. Elderly Vietnam veteran rented a room for the sole purpose of having a private space in which to commit suicide by overdosing on pills. His family found out about his plan and called the police. They arrived just in time to find him and the room covered in shit and vomit. He survived. Guess who spent almost 3 hours trying to clean that motherfucker? New line. Perfect spot for this story. So we had this one couple that would stay in our hotel in a casino that I used to work at when I was 16. Both were married to other people. They had stayed there for a few days as usual. Time to check out. Me and my coworker went in and were hit with this putrid smell of garlic, foul bowel, vomited wall when we had entered. To your left when entering the room, there was a mini fridge and a sink. Next to it, the bathroom on the left side before the bedroom. Vomit and blood all over the counter of the sink and floor leading to the bathroom. This was all carpeted, even on the mirror. Just, wow. Heading to the bathroom, the toilet seat was completely off, and shower curtains ripped almost all the way off. Puke everywhere. Blood all over the toilet as well. Looked like something out of a horror movie. Just foul. To get to the good part, we go into the bedroom area. The duvet seemed fine, and they had made the bed before leaving. Unbeknownst to us, we remove it. There was so much blood on the bed as it had looked like someone was stabbed to death. Fecal matter as well. Used condoms too. Yuck. Now since we had to decontaminate this room, since it now has been considered biohazard, we had to remove the whole mattress and dispose of this. Ho ho. Lo and behold, anal beads the size of bowling balls shoved under the mattress. I started gagging as well as my fellow coworker. This room had gotten to the point I had to call the mod. He came up and looked at the room and lost whatever he had eaten that day. He told us to leave the room and go home to shower. The plus side is we got off early for the day and didn't have to touch that room for a week, as the company called a professional cleaning crew to completely clean the room and dispose of anything and everything that had been in contact of the grossness. The couple got fined heavily for the damages and were banned from the hotel for life. The worst ever room I had ever seen. New line. My ex worked as cleaning staff at a shitty motel in Florida. A few years ago she found a bunch of those realistic looking baby dolls and a small pile of used condoms in the bathtub. All had been partially burned/melted. New line. Not hotel maid staff, but I owned a 68 room motel for a few years in a heavy tourist area. By far the worst was a family from the Middle East, all of men, who came to visit for about 14 nights. They appeared to be very fastidious and polite. They very politely told the cleaning staff that it was against their culture to allow a woman to clean their quarters and tip them, and told them it wouldn't be a problem. After checkout, the room was destroyed is a kind word. There was a pile of towels and linen about 5 feet tall in the closet. Wallpaper had curled off the wall at the edges of the room from the pipe and cigarette smoke being so thick. It was a non-smoking property. Ashes and miscellaneous tobacco leftovers dotted the carpeted areas of the floor. The toilet was scorched on the tank and in the bowl. One bed frame was broken in several places like a cartoon, and the mattress laying in the center of the debris on the ground. The TV and the dresser it was on was simply gone. The small round table was out of place, and the hanging light over it was pulled out of the ceiling and left in pieces around the room. The bathroom mirror was broken in 2 places, one from an obvious first or elbow strike. There were bits of food and half-filled bottles of piss all over the room. We also never found any trace of the Bible, the bath mat, either robe, any container empty, or otherwise for any consumable in the room. The bathtub was backed up with extremely thick dark hair. Room was out of service for 20 days, while it was gutted to the studs. New line. I had a Middle Eastern family stay with us as well. They had 2 rooms. 5 days into their stay one of them came to me and said his shower wasn't working. So I go up there and I'm pulling on the shower and it's really tight and didn't want to pull out. Unfortunately maintenance was gone for the day by then, so there was little I could do then. I made a comment to him that I wished he would have said something earlier. How long has this been going on? He said, I don't know, we haven't used it. I asked him about his other room. He too also said, I don't know, we haven't used it yet either. Luckily that shower in the other room worked fine, and he was okay with having to go into the other room for showers for tonight. But as I went back to the desk it dawned on me, absolutely no one in either of those two rooms took a shower in at least 5 days. New Line had a friend that worked cleaning a Days Inn right off the interstate by a truck stop. She had some fucked up stories, most wrapped around bizarre places to find used condoms, like behind the TV, or on the windowsill behind a curtain. She made it about 5 months. New Line. I walked into the aftermath of an attempted suicide. A man had slit his wrists and drank lots of vodka. We called the ambulance and they took him away, still alive. The mattress was purplish brown with blood and pee. It soaked right through 2 waterproof mattress covers. We didn't even try to wash the sheets and covers, just stuffed them in black trash bags and chucked them in the dumpster. The hotel owners wanted to try to salvage the mattress, so we stood it up and sprayed it down with all sorts of disinfectors and let it air out, but no dice. They even had to remove the carpet in the room because it held onto the sick blood smell. New Line. A couple of friends of mine had to clean a room here in town after a suicide. Guy blew his head off with a shotgun. Congealed blood, chunks of brain and bone. For what it's worth, they successfully sued the owners of the motel afterwards, but I don't think the owners ever faced criminal charges for improperly disposing of biological material, which is bullshit. New Line. Not a maid staff, but used to work front desk at a hotel in Myrtle Beach. So many wild stories from that job. Once we had a customer check in late at night and came to the front desk to complain about a large chocolate stain on their sheet in their maid bed. After some checking, turns out the maid that cleaned the room, it was her last day on the job and she had decided to wipe her ass with the sheets and then make the bed. The customers ended up with a free stay. New Line. I can tell you one room I was in where someone set a cleaning trap. Laying in bed with my wife, she felt a piece of paper down by her feet. It said they don't change the dirty ass sheets in the room. Check out the blood stains and pubic hair down here, which was both there. Called the front desk and we were moved to suite in the other tower of this casino hotel in Vegas. New Line. My nephew owns several mountain resort motels. I was his GM for quite a while and specifically resided at his biggest motel and ran it 24/7 by myself. I had a young guy show up for his booking. The credit card he used to book was a disposable one. He set off my spid. I sensed something awful, though no reason. Just had a bad vibe. So I charged him $500 cash hold deposit thinking he would go away. He paid it, which set my suspicion into overdrive. But not a damn thing I could do about it. Next morning, I make breakfast for all of the guests, buffet style. Don't see him at breakfast 10 minutes before checkout time. He shows up and wants his money back. I tell him sure, I'll just go check the room first. His face got super angry and he said, "Fuck it. Just keep the money." Jumped into a vehicle and went to drive away. I snapped a pic of his license number because seriously, who leaves $500 behind? I went to his room and opened the door. The room was destroyed. I didn't let my cleaning staff anywhere near it. There was shit all over the bed, ice cubes all around the room. The sink was plugged with women's underwater and dirty socks with water flowing onto the floor. The sheets were torn, blood smeared around, a tripod set up in the corner and left behind, empty packaging for all different kinds of sex toys and various clothing. The TV was flipped forward and laying on its face. The room was utterly destroyed. I'm guessing he had a video feed going. My nephew and I, in hazmat type suits, spent about 4 hours cleaning the room before we let the cleaning staff in there to completely scour it from ceiling to floor, so we couldn't rent it out that day. Little fucker cost us more than $500, but at least it was recoverable. There's lots of crazy stories fro. New Line. My college would rent out dorm rooms at a low cost and students could work as cleaning staff. I did it 1 year and decided it was not worth it. We had a baseball team stay at one of the dorms and they spit chewing tobacco and sunflower shells everywhere. You would lift the trash bag out of the can, and it would have a puddle of chew spit at the bottom of the can. One of them also wrote "fuck you" in poop on the wall of the bathroom. New line housekeeper wasn't my title, but when you work at a small hotel with a small staff you do a little bit of everything. You kind of have to. This was a small hotel, 120 ice rooms, that allowed pets for a modest fee. This particular hotel was extended stay, meaning it was set up so that every room included not just the basic amenities, but also a full kitchen, full-sized fridge, dishwasher, oven, the works. It was common to have people stay while their houses or apartments were being repaired, or while waiting on the sale/purchase of a home. 2 women, mother and daughter, check in with 2 cats. Okay, cool. They seem a little silly, but we've seen a lot of weird people and don't think anything of it. The rule at this property was that while guests could refuse to have their room cleaned, rooms had to be inspected every 5 days, just to make sure the rooms didn't have any severe damage. Sounds like a great idea, and might have prevented a lot of the damage described in other rooms in this thread, and if that rule had been followed here it might even have saved some measure of my sanity. Unfortunately, during this time the housekeeping manager who was supposed to be conducting these checks was very busily fucking her boss. After the end of the second week, the housekeeper started to complain about the smell, even through the closed door. Sadly, the manager decided to continue her sordid history of doing absolutely nothing but fucking around, and the complaints were basically ignored. At the end of the third week, the women were evicted for non-payment. I wasn't there when the first unlucky housekeeper opened that cursed door, but I'm not sure how she didn't immediately start vomiting. Just walking past the building made me start to gag, and this was walking past an exterior entrance, as in, I was outside, not in a closed hallway. Apparently, during their 3 short weeks in that small hotel room, 2 cats became 14, most of which were not spayed, some of which were injured, and none were provided with any kind of actual care. There were no litter boxes, both litter and cheap kibble had been scattered amply over every surface. Urine and feces were everywhere, along with blood and worse. There were cats with injuries so bad that when the animals were collected by animal control they had to be immediately put down. Roughly about the time this was discovered, the old manager and the housekeeping manager got fired for fraud, not the fucking, surprisingly, and a new hotel manager was brought in. She took one look at the shit show and hired a disaster relief company to come in. They ripped the room up down to the studs while wearing full hazmat suits at all times. Not only did we have to replace all the soft goods, the mattress, the furniture, the carpet, the curtains, but also the fucking appliances in the kitchen, which had somehow also been drenched in urine. There were places where they had to jackhammer up parts of the floor and rep concrete because the smell just wouldn't stop. In 10+ years I have seen blood, shit, vomit, and any number of bodily fluids. I have seen floods, raw sewage, moldy food, stained mattresses, and rooms destroyed by careless guests who thought carpets were perfectly acceptable places to put out their cigarettes. But none of that compares to that one tiny room. New line: another not maid staff, but response: I used to work security at a resort. The worst that I witnessed was the aftermath of a couple getting into an argument. A husband and wife were drunk and taking a bath together and then got into an argument. The wife pooped in the bath, picked up the turds, and threw them at her husband like a monkey. Then the husband accidentally stepped on one and smushed it into the carpet. I felt terrible for the 5 housekeepers that had to clean it up, and even worse for the couple's 2 kids that were in the room. New line: my first "real job" was stripping beds in a small motel at the age of 14. I would start a bit before the maids, so that they just had to remake the beds. Easy enough job for a 14-year-old. One room was a stayover, and I knocked on the door. Guy answered and I asked if he wanted service that day. He was in shit-stained briefs. He said yes, he wanted service. I told him I'd just strip the beds and I could come back later with the maid and get it all done at once. He told me to just come in then and strip the bed and dirty towels out. So I did. When I went to leave I told him the maid would be to his room after a bit to give fresh towels and make the bed. He got pissed and wanted me to make the bed right then. Mind you, there were nasty dirty underwear next to the bed and in the bathroom along with a ton of dirty magazines on the other bed. I explained again that I don't make the beds, just strip the rooms. I was a scared young girl. He got angrier, and I dipped out of the room fast to go talk to the head housekeeper. She was supposed to tell me that morning, before I got started, to stay away from that room, and forgot to pass on that info. So since she screwed up, she went with me and the maid, and we had to make his bed and put in fresh towels while he was sitting there staring at us in his dirty nasty underwear. New line. I once heard my aunt, head of housekeeping in a hotel, talking to my mom. She told her that a maid came to her and told her something suspicious is happening in a room. The attendant was staying for 1 week. The maid said that she found kids' underwear in the room and that she saw different kids at 2 different days. When she went to clean the beds, while the attendant was in the room, they informed the security team of suspicious activity. Turns out he brings different pair of kids every day until the 3rd day came and confirmed that the kids were different each day before the 3rd day. Turns out that he takes the kids to his room, make them take a drug called burundanga which creates a short-term memory loss, has sex with them, and then going down the street saying that they were missing, and goes back to his room like nothing happened. Plus turns out he was only 23. The police were called. The FBI arrives saying that they were tracking him down for cyber and deep web illegal activity found on his devices. I haven't seen something nastiest than this happening in a room. New line. Not maid staff, but I did general maintenance at a 5-star hotel in Ontario, Canada. We had a room that the toilet would continuously plug up after a few uses. We would dump drain cleaner down it, plunge it, snake it. Nothing seemed to work. So I removed the toilet to see what the blockage was. In the bottom of the toilet, caked in shit, was someone's false teeth. An entire top plate with all the teeth. Freaked me out a bit to see teeth looking back at me from a toilet. I gave them to management and they were able to determine who they belonged to and return them to their rightful owner. We assumed that during a drinking bender the owner must have been puking something fierce to lose his teeth like that. For more funny Askreddit stories, please subscribe and like the video.